Welcome to A Slob Comes Clean, the podcast. I am Dana K. White. I share my personal deslobification process. As I figure out ways to keep my own home under control, I share the truth about cleaning and organizing strategies that actually work in real life for real people. People who don't love cleaning and organizing. Thanks for joining me today. This is podcast number 435. I'm calling it Why Understanding the Layers of a Clean House is Helpful. I might say crucial, for people like us. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say us, y'all. In case you started listening because you thought, oh, this person talks about cleaning and organizing, and you didn't notice that the name of the podcast was A Slob Comes Clean, and you thought, well, I'm just going to hear all the ear candy that I like to hear about organizing. Well, welcome, and we're glad you're here. But us who are usually talking, the people who I'm usually talking to on this podcast, are the people like me, right? Like the people who are like, wait, we're intelligent people. How is this so hard? Why is my house so hard to keep under control? Like, what is it? Why is it that it seems to be like it's so easy that no one else even has to think about it, and I have to think about it way too much, and it's still hard, right? So that's what I'm talking about. And understanding the layers of a clean house is something I used to not do. I didn't understand that there were layers to a clean house, right? I just knew I wanted a clean house. My house was a disaster. My friends had houses that looked the way that I wanted my house to look. And I was like, what are we doing differently? I don't get it. It seemed like we weren't speaking the same language because we weren't, because I didn't understand there were layers of a clean house. They didn't understand there were layers of a clean house, but they also didn't understand, they didn't understand it because it was just kind of like obvious and natural to them. And so therefore, when they would legitimately, kindly try to help me, like give me advice, like, well, this is what I do. And I was like, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. So what I mean when I say layers of a clean house, I used to be completely bewildered by the fact that cleaning was such a daunting task for me. Like so daunting. Like I would dread it. I would have to gear myself up. I would wait for inspiration because I hated it so much. And then when I cleaned, it would take me days, and it was just completely bewildering because my friend would say that she didn't clean, or that she never cleaned, and her house always looked great. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Well, it turns out we were talking about two different things. Here's the reality of the layers of a clean house. I have other podcasts on this. I talk about it in my books, different places. So I'm just going to give a super brief overview. This is how it works. I used to think that cleaning my house was taking it from disaster to perfectly clean and scrubbed. Okay. And so when I was talking about cleaning, I was talking about all of that. When I was leaving my parents' lake house at one point, where we had been up there for a nice little free vacation for a couple days, and it was just my little family, and I was getting it all put back together because my mom left a really detailed list at the end of the time that we were there, I realized, okay, the cleaning is only the bottom layer. And here's how I realized it. I was catching up on dishes. Like I had tried to keep up with the dishes for the first couple days that we were there, and then the last couple days I didn't. And so it was time to leave the house. And even though the actual list just said, hey, sweep this area and wipe down this area and blah, 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 and that was the cleaning, before I could do any of that, I had to catch up on the dishes. Okay. Now, at this time, I had been thinking way more deeply than most people think about my house because I was going through my deslobification process. I was writing about what I was doing, what I was figuring out on my blog. This started back in 2009. Do we say that? Do we say 2009, 2009 at aslobcomesclean.com? Okay. So like that was where I was figuring this out. So I was already in the mode. And so I was already observing, I know the impact of doing the dishes, and I was seeing the impact of not having done the dishes for the last couple of days and having to catch up on that before I could do anything that was actual cleaning. And then I also noticed, oh, as I tell my husband and my kids, get all of our stuff out of here, once all of their clothes and shoes and socks and random toys that they had brought with them and all that, once that was all packed up and removed from the house, it was super easy. Like all I had to do was clean because there wasn't any clutter, because all that was there actually had a place to be, right? But there are layers. So the first layer of a clean house is the daily stuff. This isn't cleaning. It's the stuff that needs to be done every day. It's the dishes. It's the doing a 5-minute pickup, doing the basic picking up, sweeping. Those are the things that if I will do those every day, they never build up to be big. But if I don't do them, and then it's time to clean, I spend all my time that I thought I was going to be cleaning actually just doing dishes and never getting to the actual scrubbing and the mopping and the wiping down and all that kind of stuff, because I'm just catching up on things that if I did them every day, only took me a couple minutes every day, or not a couple minutes, 10 to 15, which is, not very many. So that's the first layer. It's the catching up on the daily stuff. The daily stuff, if I will keep that done, that layer is not something I have to deal with when I clean my house. And I'm making little quote marks. I'm sure you can hear that in my voice, right? The second layer is the clutter. When I would go to clean my house, I would catch up on all the dishes. I'd be exhausted. So that would take me the first day, And then the second day, I was moving all the stuff around. Like all the stuff that had no place to go, that was just either randomly sitting in places or piles. Cause I was just like, I don't have a place for everything. And all these things, they made it messy and they made it to where I couldn't actually clean, right? Because you can't actually clean when there's clutter everywhere. So I would shove all that stuff in my master bedroom, lock the door, because that was the place I could lock and keep people out. Because let's just be honest, most of the time when I was cleaning, it was because people were coming over, right? So I would get all that stuff shifted, not decluttered, but I would deal with the clutter by shoving it into that room. Well, I realized, okay, the clutter is the other layer. When there isn't a bunch of stuff that doesn't have a place to be, then I can just get down to the cleaning, especially if I haven't let the daily things get out of control to where I have to catch up, right? So those are the layers of a clean house. It's the daily stuff, the clutter, and the cleaning. If you can keep up with the daily stuff and the more you declutter, then when it's time to clean, it's kind of bananas. Like it's one of those things where I'm like, wait, is this how easy it is for other people? Is this why it looked easy for other people? Because it was easy for other people because they were doing the other things they should be doing at other times and not putting them off until the big cleaning day. It's that, oh, I can just fill a bucket with water and some cleaning solution and just start cleaning. I can just start wiping down the countertops because I don't first have to deal with all the piles of things on top of the countertops, right? So it was just getting down to the cleaning. So that is the layers of a clean house. So I had a video that I put out. Let's see. I think it was about November of 2023. December of 2023. So right at a year, I don't know. Anyway, I wrote these notes to do this podcast a little earlier, but at the time when I wrote the notes, it had 521,000 views in 11 months. Now, in case y'all are like, oh, I didn't know Dana was that big of a YouTuber. I'm not. It's the video that's done better than any of my other videos. It's not my number one, but in the amount of time that it has existed, it has done by far the best. Like YouTube will tell you, that's 465,000 more than usual in 11 months, right? So as you can see, I don't ever get that many, but this video did exceptionally well. And I was working in, I'd actually been at an Airbnb working on the book that comes out in February, y'all. And as I was getting ready to, leave and had to get it cleaned up, I was like, oh, this is a great demonstration of the layers of a clean house. I will link to that in the show notes for this. So that video did really, really well. And I just demonstrated it. I showed what I meant by it. Okay. Now that video, it ebbs and it flows. It gets a lot of people who are like, oh my goodness, this explains so much. Thank you so much. That's why it's done really well. It also gets people who don't get it at all. Like that's the reality of things doing really well. on the internet is you get exposed to a lot of people who didn't know that you existed and who are like, who is this weirdo? What is she talking about? Anyway, so it has its good and its bad, but it's mostly good, right? Like, because I know there are a lot of people, you may have found me through that video, right? So I want to talk about two pretty recent comments on that video that show why it's so important to understand that there are layers of a clean house and what those layers are. Let me read the first one, and I'm going to kind of edit it a little bit because I don't like, it was basically comparing this video makes sense to me and another video I had seen didn't make sense to me. And sometimes I'm like, are you remembering exactly what you saw there? Or are you kind of, beefing it up or whatever, or making it sound worse than it was? So anyway, I'll kind of edit a little bit as I go. All right. So this is talking about the layers of a clean house concept. Okay. This has given me an entirely new perspective. I recently watched a different video on things people who have clean houses do every day. Okay. So the subtitle of this is me talking again, of the layers of a clean house video is why cleaning feels so hard. Okay. So for the person who is completely overwhelmed, like I was, and like some of you are, or some of you have been at different times, okay? And you look at a clean house and you go, how do you do that? Okay, so this is something that they had been looking up and they had found something, okay? Anyway, so this video involved, according to the commenter, this is their perspective, what they remember, right? Cleaning out expired food from the fridge on a daily basis, doing laundry and putting it away on a daily basis, vacuuming the main areas of the house twice a day. Anyway, supposedly there were 10 things on this list, and the person claimed that, which again, this is perception. Okay. I don't want to diss anybody's videos, right? That each one and this person put it in quotes, just took 10 minutes. That's 100 minutes per day of cleaning. No, thank you. It says, that's exactly why I don't have a clean house. Your video just made things click. Taking 5 to 10 minutes a day to do the daily stuff makes such a difference. I'm that person who would leave cleaning until a weekend, and then I'm spending literally 8 hours cleaning, but 90% of that was dealing with layers 1 and 2, as you described. Anyway, this video was so helpful and realistic. Okay, so I actually think that I relate very much. Again, I don't know if that's what the video actually said, right? And I have no idea what video they're talking about. But the perception, the impression that the person took away who was looking for, how do I keep my house clean, was, if I was going to do that, it would mean spending 100 minutes a day cleaning. Y'all, 100 minutes a day is an hour and 40 minutes. An hour and 40 minutes cleaning every day. Now, I remember talking to Dawn one time, and I think we're here on the podcast. And by the way, Take Your House Back is on sale right now. So go grab it while it's on sale if you're not a member and you've been wanting to, because you got to get it while it's on sale. Anyway, go to aslobcomesclean.com/take. All right. Okay. So anyway, she referenced a survey that was similar to that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but an hour and 40 minutes of cleaning is what is being said. These are the things to do every day. Well, to the person who is overwhelmed and thinks, okay, my house is a disaster. This person says that this is what it takes. I can't spend an hour and 40 minutes, because I guarantee you that the person who is overwhelmed in their house, usually we're overwhelmed because we're busy doing things, right? And so the idea of adding an hour and 40 minutes every day being what it would take if our house was actually going to be under control is the thing that makes us think, well, then that can never happen. I can't do that. I simply don't have it in me to spend an hour and 40 minutes every day doing each of these 10 things for 10 minutes, right? So that's why it's so important to understand the layers of a clean house, right? Because the beauty of it is the dishes have dishes math. Okay. And understanding that the 5 hours of catching up on dishes that I used to think was doing the dishes, because I only ever did the dishes when I was catching up on dishes, right? And that was the 5 hour thing. But that is not a realistic thing. It's not how it actually plays out. If I do them every day, it takes me 10 to 15 minutes. I call this dishes math. Okay. One day's worth of dishes takes 10 to 15 minutes, but I had no earthly idea because I was doing what I thought was correct math and it was wrong. And that is, if I wait 5 days and it takes me 5 hours to do the dishes, that means if I was to do them every day, it would take me an hour a day. And I don't have an hour a day to spend doing dishes. And so I would think that I didn't have any option but to put them off and then do 5 hours, which then just perpetuated that misconception that I had. So instead of that, I went through the process of being like, I'm just going to do my dishes every day and see what, and through doing them, I realized, oh, 1 day's worth of dishes, it doesn't work like I thought dishes math would. Dishes actual math is 1 day's worth of dishes is 10 to 15 minutes. 2 days worth of dishes is like an hour because now I'm moving and shifting and all that. And then 3 days worth of dishes is hours because now I have to excavate my kitchen because every dish is dirty and every surface is covered and all that. Right. So this reality is, it makes so much more sense to my brain through the experience of it, right? Like the experience of doing my dishes and finding out that it was only 10 to 15 minutes worth of time was so much more powerful than someone telling me it's going to be 100 minutes. And I'm like, well, I don't have the time. And so I never even try it. Right. And so this understanding that daily stuff is so much easier if I actually do it daily and makes the cleaning easier is so helpful to me, right? Like it helps it actually happen. And then understanding decluttering, first of all, understanding how to declutter, because I didn't know how to declutter before because I hadn't made up my no mess method, right? Like I have my 5-step progress and only progress, no mess decluttering method. That is what works for me. And because I know that method, I can tackle any space in whatever time I've got. I don't have to say, I don't have an hour and 40 minutes today. What's the point of even trying? Instead, I know that if I just take 5 minutes to throw away trash, my house will be better off. And my house is going to get to that point where I am going to be able to clean easily. Okay. To do the cleaning easily. I'm not saying I'm going to mop every day. I'm just not. It's never going to happen. But if I'm keeping up with my daily stuff, then when I mop, it's not that big of a deal, right? Which makes it me more willing to actually do it, which makes it happen more often, which all of that stuff working together, right? So it's so important to understand the layers of a clean house so that we don't get caught up in what we assume other people are doing. Okay. And I guarantee you, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing an hour and 40 minutes. If that is what you want to do, if it works well for you to say, I'm going to do these 10 things and they're going to take me each 10 minutes every day and you can handle, then that's great. Like keep doing that, right? Like don't change anything. But there are a whole lot of us out there who that is flat out too daunting. Therefore, we're never even going to try. Therefore, it's never going to happen. Therefore, it gets worse and worse and worse, and it feels more and more unattainable, right? But the beauty is, it actually doesn't take me an hour and 40 minutes. Is my house always perfect every time, somebody walks in and I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have already done the things I should have done today. But no, my house is not always perfect, but it's always within like 15 minutes of being totally fine for people to come over, right? So that is one of the comments that I think is really important to talk about, just having that realistic idea. Okay. Then there's this other comment. Okay. I really think there are even more layers than that. And there have been several comments like this over the year. Even cleaning and mopping and vacuuming aren't the deepest. There is a deeper layer for walls, cabinets, closets, and repairs. I think you can also add photo storage, computer cleanup, archival records, birth certificates, and business files. LOL. That's them, not me. I never say LOL. If you ever get a text from me and someone is like saying, this is Dana, I need you to help me send $1,000, which I never will send you that. Okay. But you can know for sure if they say LOL, it was not me because I don't say LOL. Anyway, LOL is what they said. All right. So they are adding on a whole lot of other things. A whole lot of shoulds, right? So let's talk about why is it that understanding the layers of a clean house is so powerful. It removes the bewilderment. Okay. Now I know why cleaning feels so hard because I'm not taking care of daily stuff and I haven't decluttered. So therefore, I'm adding that to the cleaning. That's why cleaning feels so hard. Okay. It removes the bewilderment about why what people with clean houses are saying doesn't make any sense to you. When they say that they don't clean, but their house looks amazing, it's confusing. That confusion used to make me feel really bad about myself. That was a huge frustration for me because I was like, what you're saying doesn't make any sense to me. And that makes me feel dumb. And I know I'm not dumb, but I feel real dumb in this situation. And it made me feel really bad about myself. Right. So removing that bewilderment, giving you the understanding of, oh, they're not doing catching up on daily stuff and decluttering first, which was, again, always have to remember my decluttering when I was not actually decluttering, when I was doing that as part of cleaning, was just stuff shifting, shoving everything in a room, which only meant that then that stuff drifted back out into the house and blah, 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 whatever. Okay. It removes the bewilderment about why it is that you clean all day and feel like you don't even make a dent. Because, like the first person said, they understood why now that they were not getting anywhere by spending 8 hours on a Saturday cleaning. Okay. I know that feeling. I know that I'm going to clean it from top to bottom and it didn't have any lasting effect. Now, the reality is stuff doesn't stay clean, right? But if I clean for 8 hours, get my house as perfect as I can get it in 8 hours, which I couldn't even get it anywhere near perfect in 8 hours when I first started, right? Like I was way past that. But my husband would go camping for a weekend and I would clean all weekend. And he would love it when he came home, right? And it looked great. But because I hadn't actually decluttered, then the stuff that I had shoved into another room, into a closet, wherever, when I needed any of that stuff, I didn't actually know where it was. I just knew it was in the pile somewhere. So I had to tear through the pile, which meant everything became this big explosion and just went right back to not really having a place and being all over the house, right? So it didn't have any lasting effect. Also, I would clean all day and be like, whew, I'm so glad to be done. And then I wouldn't do the dishes for a week because I was exhausted from the cleaning for 8 hours. And if you don't do the dishes all week, well, then you're back in that same exact situation where now I have to do 5 hours of dishes and that exhausts me, right? Okay, so it's that and the whole why doesn't cleaning last? So I didn't actually declutter. I was just moving things around. So it just moved right back all over the house. And I didn't keep up with daily stuff after it was done, right? So it removes that bewilderment. It removes the shame, like we talked about, that made me feel dumb when I didn't understand why this was so hard. Also, when you're just imagining how long things take to clean because you're dealing with a totally different situation than somebody who isn't fighting the layers, and that amount of time isn't ever going to happen, it really feels hopeless. Like that's what we were talking about in the beginning. It feels so hopeless to think I'm never going to have time. I'm never going to have a point in my life. Or if I do, that's that whole, like, it's going to be the next phase of life, the next phase of life. That's when I'll have an hour and 40 minutes every day available to clean. That never happens. Okay. Right. So yeah, it removes that bewilderment. It removes the shame, removes the hopelessness, to understand the layers of a clean house. And also that last comment about, oh, but what about, the deeper layer of, repairs and photo storage and computer cleanup and archival records and birth certificates and business files. They didn't do the big gasp, but I'm adding that gasp in because that's overwhelming, right? So knowing that there are layers to a clean house eliminates those excessive should lists. It stops the overthinking and the spinning out. Not that those things don't need to be done. Of course they need to be done. But what I used to do was I would look at my house and I would be like, it's a disaster. I need to make a list. And I would start thinking of and listing out all the things that should be done, all the things that I really needed to do. And I was exhausted just looking at the list, right? If I will do the daily stuff every day, dishes are never on the list. When dishes used to take me 5 hours, by the time I start working on a list, I'm 5 hours ahead because I don't have to do any dishes because the dishes are already done. Decluttering, once I actually started decluttering instead of just moving stuff from space to space and room to room because it didn't have a place, once I started getting it out of my house, an item that is gone from my house, I never have to touch it, move it, think about it, look at it again. And I just get to skip ahead, which means that when I cleaned, I was able to get that done in way less than 8 hours. I would say less than an hour and 40 minutes usually. But I was able to get that cleaning done. And then it's shocking how much time it freed up. And I hear this from y'all all the time. You're like, I never imagined, even though I had said it many times, right? But I understand because I didn't get it either, how much time it would free up in my life to do my dishes every day. When I'm thinking it's an hour and 40 minutes, so why even try? I don't do them. But even though I'm not doing them, they're always on the to-do list as the first thing that needs to be done, but they're so daunting and it seems so hopeless that I don't do them. And it's just this bad cycle, right? But keeping the daily stuff done daily so that it's just small things done daily. I'm not saying that's all there is to do, but doing those small things daily keeps the house under control, keeps it from being a total disaster, and it frees up so much time. Okay. Now, I just want to be clear. Most likely, if there is a video where somebody was saying that they were doing this, they were probably talking about actually having a sparkling, perfect, always magazine ready house all the time, right? Like if they were saying that they were spending 10 minutes on these 10 tasks every day, they were doing that. And that's awesome. That's not what I'm talking about, y'all. I'm so sorry. Maybe I should have said that at the beginning, because if I said that at the beginning, then y'all would have known to stop listening if that's what you were hoping for, because that's not what I'm here for, right? I'm here for let's get rid of the ongoing mess so we can live our life in our house. Like that's just me. I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. I'm saying this is what I'm doing. I'm not here to tell you how to have it all spark all the time. I'm here to tell you how to have a house that you're like, yeah, got it. We can do this, right? Okay. So the excessive should lists become a list of, yeah, those are things I need to do. And now I have time to do them. And also, it's not the same list. Organizing your photos is not on the same list as wiping down the kitchen counters. It's just not. The kitchen counters is not even a list, y'all. So at the back of How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind is the 28 Days to Hope for Your Home. To hope for your phone. That's what it is. It's the 28 Days to Hope for Your Home, which was the first ebook I ever wrote. And when I wrote How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind with a traditional publisher, I was like, we have to include this because this is how you do it. This is how you go from, oh my word, why is this so hard, to, oh, okay, I think I can do this. And I remember when I first wrote that ebook. So what I'm saying is it's available to you now, right? At the back of How to Manage Your Home. But when I wrote that first ebook, I remember friends, other bloggers, like, oh, you should include some checklists, some daily checklists. And I was like, no. The whole point to me is that it needed to be boiled down to the point where these are the things that are easy enough and simple enough for me to remember that I don't need a checklist. So that by the time I do a checklist, it's about other things, bigger things. Okay. But these things are basic enough. They don't even need to be on the checklist, right? It also, knowing the layers of the clean house gives me the thing to tackle. I have, I just heard from somebody who had been through intense trauma. And she was saying, thank you. And she said, thank you for teaching me that when you don't know what to do the dishes. Like knowing that there are layers of a clean house means that when my house is a disaster or when my life is a disaster and things are really, really difficult, and I feel so bewildered that it feels like there's so much to do. There's this, and I could be doing this, and I could be doing this, and I could be doing this. Instead, I know if I don't know what to do the dishes. That's the first thing. Knowing that takes so much stress off, right? That's the reason it's so important to understand the layers of a clean house, that there are layers. It's not just a big clean the house. This is the reason why the 5-step no mess decluttering process is so helpful when you're trying to help your kids clean their rooms, right? I was the kid whose room was always a disaster. And just the statement, clean your room, it didn't mean anything to me. Like, I didn't understand. And I'm sure my mom did try to break it down and things like that. So I don't want to act like she never tried. I'm just saying what I remember is clean your room and me going, what? That's why the 5-step no mess decluttering process is what I use when I'm just working in my house when it's gone out of control. And that is, I start with the trash. So I don't have to think about, oh my goodness, there's so much for me to do. Instead, I just say, okay, I'm going to start with the trash after the dishes are done, right? All right, I'm going to start throwing away trash. Okay, is there anything that I already do know what to do with? That's the easy stuff. I'm going to go ahead and get that stuff out of here. All right. Okay, is there anything I can just, get rid of? Normally, as a donation, obvious donation, normally a regular old cleanup of the house, once I have done the decluttering, which got things either out of my house or given a real home with the first decluttering question, if I needed this, where would I look for it first? Things either have a home or they're gone. So once I get to that point where things do have homes and there's nothing just kind of floating around wishing it had a place to live, at that point, the pickup, like getting my house, under control and getting it picked up, it's just those first 3 steps of the decluttering process, right? Like, it's just the trash and the stuff I already know where it goes. It's really just the first 2 steps, honestly. Like, those first 2 steps will get me through a space that has already been decluttered. We'll get that space back to being, what I want it to be. So, understand the layers of a clean house and the power of knowing that there are layers, and what those layers are is it removes your bewilderment. You get it now, right? There's so much power in that. It removes the shame because you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Now I understand. I'm not clueless. There's not something wrong with me that they say it's easy and I say it's so hard. No. We just weren't looking at it the same way. Like, we weren't looking at it because they maybe didn't have to look at it that way. And it eliminates those excessive should lists, because the excessive should lists keep us from getting started. And if we don't get started, we're never going to get there. Okay. All right. I hope that was helpful, and I will talk to y'all next week. Don't forget to go take your house back while it is on sale. aslobcomesclean.com/take. All right. Bye, y'all.